Welcome. You got it. No, go ahead.
Hi,
Welcome.
everybody.
Okay.
God damn it, we're gonna get it together one day.
No, we're not. It's been 2 years.
Well, all of us is here,
Facts.
obviously, because you heard.
Well, except for Natalie. Hope she feels better.
Yeah, she's sick.
Yeah.
She got some good
I'm
flips
not saying a
for
word.
me.
Worry, y'all keep saying the same shit.
We're in tune with each other this Sunday.
Clearly.
Is that like the Mercury in retrograde and all the moons are aligning or whatever bullshit?
Yeah.
I still don't know what that means.
All the stars are closer.
I still don't know what that means.
I don't think we've ever recorded an episode and I was like, you know what? I learned something today.
No.
We do learn things. I don't want our guests to get it confused. We do learn things.
I
Just
mean, we
not
do
all the
learn
time.
things, but for the most part, it's like, okay.
Nah, I learned that we ain't as fucked up as everybody else.
That's about it.
We are
Right.
the best of the worst.
I'm not going to coin that one.
That's fine.
Speak positivity.
We didn't even introduce ourselves. I'm Steven. This is Sophisticated Ignorance.
I am Nieema.
This is Sophisticated Ignorance.
I'm
Bitch, we already
Vixon.
said it.
I'm Vixon.
And this is Sophisticated
Oh
Ignorance.
my gosh. All right. Well, now that we've got that
we
clear,
spent a whole minute and 25 seconds
Bullshit.
introducing ourselves. Wow.
this is how we do.
Man, this is why y'all keep tuning in and listening.
Facts. Big facts. But we got a special guest this week.
Yeah, we do.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Edafe Okporo. I'm unsophisticated ignorant.
Yes!
He's on brand. He's on brand. He's on brand. He a real one.
Oh boy.
He feel the vibes.
I'm a
He knows the
podcaster.
vibes.
I have a podcast called the Point Podcast. I am a bridge builder and a community advocate for LGBTIQ people and immigrants in New York City.
Dope.
Dope.
Cool.
Dope. So
That
before
sounds
we
very
even
important.
before we even jump into this, obviously we need to get our ad off.
Please.
Get these bucks. Shout out to our sponsor, Scotch Porter. Remember, guys, to use the code SI10. It's the holiday season, so buy some shit for yourself. If you a lady tuning in right now, buy some shit for your boo, your baby daddy, your side nigga, whatever position he got right now.
Shit.
Ouch.
See?
None of
You
them.
could at least get them the fresh meat wipes.
What?
That's mad subliminals that he trying to send to you right now. That's mad subliminals he trying to send to you
Use
right
code
now.
SI10 for all of your needs.
Oh my god.
See? And you talk about me, it be your own friends.
Nigga, you wanted them.
Nah, I ain't do you dirty like that.
Ouch.
Not on air.
See? I'm respectful.
Are you?
But let's
Right. Right.
Let's just jump into this. So you gave us like a little introduction and background. So what else you got to tell us? Like what are your roots from? You know, when you came to the States and things of that nature.
So I just mentioned my name, that my name is Edafe. Edafe is a Nigerian name from southern Nigeria. I was born close to the Atlantic Ocean. I'm from Warri, Delta State, Nigeria. The first city where oil was found in Nigeria.
Mhm.
So we are known to be like the oil city of Nigeria. So I was given the name Edafe because my mom had a cesarean operation and she wasn't going to be able to have a child anymore. And in Nigeria, children are wealth. So she named me Edafe. It means a wealthy man. Since she's not going to be having more children, the last child she's going to have is going to be a wealthy man.
I
I
like
did
that.
not know that. Whoa.
I really like
Makes
that.
my name sound like crap. Because it has no meaning. No.
I just spoke to my mom a few minutes before I came on the show,
Oh.
and she was like, I know that things are very hard for you because you are alone in that country, but always remember what your name stands for, and it should keep you going all the time.
I like that. Man.
That's deep.
Y'all parents don't say that. Y'all.
We ain't even gonna get into how we did an episode on Black parenting.
We did
I don't think either of our parents want to hear that shit.
at all. But my mother did come through today because I wasn't feeling well, so she carried me to the pharmacy to get my medicine.
Oh,
and
She
take
a
it back.
real one. She a
Yeah,
real one.
so I was dying out here in these streets. I was like, if I don't show up, Steve is gonna yell at me.
No, I'm not.
Why would he?
Yeah, you sick.
Word.
What are you
We already
talking
have
about?
another sick person. Like.
Yeah, I'd rather you actually go home instead of coughing up your lungs. on air.
Okay, Steven.
Oh boy.
What do you think this is? A fucking sweatshop?
Well, I'm fucking tired.
Are you sweating?
So you
I
could
am.
have
I'm
stayed
really
home.
hot. I'm
You
really
could have stayed
hot.
home.
I'm really hot right
It's fine.
now.
We appreciate your presence. Let's
you.
as long as the tissues are close by.
Yeah. No, I had acid reflux.
Oh, that's
So
fine.
cold.
All right. Well,
That hurts badly, but yeah. Anyway, back to the important stuff. It's not about me.
right.
So when did you first come to the States?
So I came to United States in 2016,
Oh, okay,
October.
that's fairly recent.
Yeah, that's 2 years ago. So I came like few days before the presidential election of Trump. So it was like,
Dang.
Sorry.
Bittersweet.
yeah, there was a lot of tension as regard to why you coming to America at this point. That,
Right.
but
Tension
I,
from who?
from like the media. In
Oh, okay.
Right.
In Nigeria, we watch like CNN and BBC.
Mm-hmm.
So we watch international news. I even think when I came to America, I discovered that a lot of Nigerians know a lot about America more than some people who are in the country, because I like, oh, do you know this person from CNN? They're like, oh no, I don't watch the news. I'm like, oh, I always watch CNN every morning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like pretty, it's different. The CNN International is different from CNN in America,
Mm-hmm.
because like Richard Quest or the shows in which we watch for like international CNN is like pretty more diverse on international view. In America, I stopped watching the news because when you turn on the news, everything you hear about is just like politics and like CNN business, CNN travel,
Mm-hmm.
CNN commerce, CNN fashion, all those things that make me turn on the news, I don't see them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the BBC. Well, obviously BBC America is different from like BBC Global or
International,
worldwide. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You're getting a little bit, like even BBC's. I mean, this is a little off tangent, but BBC in the sense of the international news covers a lot more topics than
True.
like the BBC that they have here. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's fairly common for Americans to not watch the news
Because it's so
it's
depressing.
all it's depressing. It's
Depressing.
completely negative.
Yeah.
It's definitely portrayed to make people of color, regardless if you're black, or regardless of your religious beliefs or your ethnic group. It definitely is created to make people of color look a certain way. So I think that's why we avoid it.
I don't want to jump into that, but like when I came into New York in 2016, I came in with a visitor's visa for 2 years to stay in America. So I was coming to seek asylum. So when I got to the border, I asked the immigration officer that, hey, I came here seeking asylum. And the immigration officers were all people of color. So I was like, when I was watching the news, Americans are like whites. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That was like majority. But everybody I saw for the first 5 hours were all people of color, majority. All the immigration officers, border patrol officers, police, everybody that was coming across me were like Asians, blacks, Central, like, but they were all Americans. So at that point, my perspective begin to like change towards what it takes to be an American. Is it like forged narrative or something? Because growing up, everything we hear about America in Africa has to do with like whites.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. But when you watch television, like movies or everything, music is more black people. So
Yeah.
like we know that there are black and white people,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know that people from various walks of life is not majority white people in some areas, or in like just to be welcomed into the country by so many people that looks like you
Mhm.
was really comfortable for me at that point.
Nice.
Yeah. No, I think we, seeing that we're from here, we don't really think about the outside perspective of people coming here and saying like, oh, okay, America's this one thing. You know what I'm saying? And then when
When
they
it's
get
really
here,
a melting pot.
Right. Well, I mean, melting pot, yeah, but it's a little. I mean, it's a little bit more than just a melting pot. Like, funny if I was talking to somebody about that, and they were saying like, you know, it's actually more of a salad bowl. You know what I'm saying? Where all the ingredients are together, but they could be picked out easily. You know what I'm saying? A melting pot is where everything's kind of like meshed together and is blended well, but she said it was more of a salad bowl where it's like, yeah, everything looks together, but you can pick out all the
Yeah.
ingredients and you can
I
tell
like
that
that.
things are diverse.
That's more accurate.
America has a bubble. people outside the bubble don't know what it is. When you get inside, the bubble bursts. Then you get to understand that it's a bubble. So before I came to America, I believe that it's a country that has dignity for humans and is like a free country. Outside, America has been sold to like people, foreigners, that this is the place where all your dreams will come true. So when you get into the bubble, I never knew that being black could be seen as something different, because I grew up in Nigeria. 99.9% black people. President is black, bankers, professionals,
regardless of social
professors,
class.
like everybody is black. So when I came into America, that I discovered that is pretty much different from what people idealize it to be outside.
Yeah, it's definitely fake news when it comes to America.
I will tell you the honest belief I got to understand is that America is still one of the best countries in the world, in the sense that everybody constitutionally have the right to freedom of speech. There are some countries in the world whereby nobody can contest what is being put out there. So even that, as a form of protection, is the greatest freedom any man can have. The reason why I left my country is that a piece of paper cannot protect me. What kind of protection can I have? In America, I can be discriminated for being a black person, but I can go to court, even though it will take a long time, but justice will be served in one way or the other. But a country where a piece of paper cannot protect you is the worst form of discrimination you can have.
Yeah,
You don't have a
feel
say.
powerless.
Right.
Absolutely powerless.
That's like mind blowing, because it's like we're here and we're thinking, oh, shit's so corrupt. Oh man, there's no justice. And then over in another country, they have no justice.
Yeah,
like
say
it's worse
in
than
anything that happens from a day-to-day basis,
right?
On any level.
There's censorship. You can't say certain things. You can't be a certain person. You can't.
A
Walk
woman
the streets
cannot
of-
be a leader in the church, because patriarchy, men in the Bible are meant to lead. If a woman leads in the church, that church is against what the Bible says.
Stands for.
A guy cannot be with another guy, because in African tradition, a man is supposed to get married to a woman and give birth to children. Like, the society, culture, and norms dictate what the Constitution says. So, like, they don't see beyond what is right or what is wrong, and you are not protected, because even the rule of law is not being followed. Like, if, for example, I am shot because I am black, and we go to the courts, at least the courts might take a long time, but the rule of law will be followed. But in Nigeria, there's a law that persecutes you for being gay, 14 years imprisonment. Nobody has been imprisoned.
Jeez.
But
Wow.
non-state actors act on behalf of the government. Police would not arrest you. An army would not punish you. But people in the streets will act on behalf of government. That means there is no rule of law. At least to some level, rule of law exists in this country, which is something that can give me a space to breathe. Even when I think about all the injustice that is happening, I can at least say that at least if I die, justice might be served. Might not be served, might be served. But due to the fact that I'm able to gain protection in this country, I believe that there is room for rule of law.
What were some like other immediate differences that you noticed once you came here?
The metrics, like Celsius to Fahrenheit, or English. In America, you say center, T-R-E. In Nigeria, we're colonized by British. We say center, T-E-R. You guys say pants. We say trousers. They say trunk.
Nice trousers there, Stephen.
Trunk. We say boots, like the car trunk or boot.
Yeah.
Like, it's as if I don't know how to write in English. When I was looking for a job, I wrote a letter, and the person called me and said, "Do you understand English?" I said, "Yes, I do." I wrote in English, and it was like, "That is not English." I said, I grew up writing in British English. So it was difficult for me to like write letters, and I had to download the word, and in Word I click US English. So when I
Mhm.
write in Word, I right click and correct it to US English. So it was difficult for me to even understood if I
Communicate.
know how to write English or not. Or I
Right.
say some words and they say that is not an English word. I like
What?
People are just rude.
I like-
Yeah, people were just
I
rude.
like this. And another cultural difference was that in Nigeria, when you see an elderly person in the morning, you say good morning.
Oh yeah, that's a
So
big
I was
thing.
working in New York, and you greet people, and everybody was just going their way. So it was as if I am this crazy guy that have different way of viewing things. So it was difficult for me to like understand that I have to go through cultural sensitivity.
Mhm.
I know that the culture here is different from the culture I grew up from. It was a huge learning curve for me.
Yeah, we just had a department meeting at work, and we had somebody transfer in from the Dublin, Ireland office, and she was like, one of the things that really like threw her off was like how nobody greets people, and when we're all riding the same elevator. I was like,
Be mad silent.
I
Good
was
morning.
like,
Excuse me. Like,
I can't say that. If I make eye contact with someone, I say hello.
yeah, if I
I'm
make
that
eye
one.
at that
contact.
point, it's too late.
I'm not one
You made
person.
eye contact. Like,
Yeah, but if I'm like
People
already
usually
in,
staring at me. So
if I'm already in the zone, like I'm already thinking about how I'm gonna start my day, whatever I'm gonna eat or whatever, like I'm not even there. Like I'm there, but I'm not there.
drink hands.
There was,
Just like,
there was a survey I was reading online that shows that what different cities are afraid of, and it shows that New Yorkers are claustrophobic. So New Yorkers want their space, but
oh, yeah, that's a
when
fact.
they are in the subway, we're all crowded like fish that's struggling to get
Believe
into
me, we don't want to.
one place.
We don't want to be.
But when you struggle to get into the subway to get to where you are going to, immediately you come out of the subway and somebody tries to say hi. It's just as if that person is like trying to
Vampire.
I don't know how to say it in English, like disturb your space.
Mhm.
So there was a lady one day, I was just trying to like be nice and polite, and she thought like, oh, maybe I was trying to chase her. So in my mind, I'm gay. I don't have anything to do with you. I was just being nice to say hi. So she thought that maybe she's too beautiful or like I don't have any interest in women, but like in my head, I was just trying to be nice. If only you can just be nice. You don't know maybe what you're trying to do that day. I might be the person that will even help you out. But sometimes
Yep.
prejudice, because I do cultural sensitivity and inclusion training, and I also have implicit bias. My own implicit bias is that I thought that African Americans were not hardworking people until I got to know that that was implicit bias based on prejudice. That when I traveled to a part of America that was predominantly white people, I saw that the poor and lazy people there were also white. So in Nigeria, the poor and lazy people are Nigerians. Travel to Mexico, poor and lazy. So any place you are, the people that are majority there is the same people that will be in each class in the
Yep.
society. But
Accurate.
it was implicit bias I had that I had to have like apply cultural humility, cultural awareness and sensitivity, and know that this is an implicit bias I have to break over. When I came here, it was hard for me to even relate to African Americans because I felt like, oh, they don't like me or something. But it's implicit bias until I started working with a guy from Atlanta in New Jersey. And this guy was like, I didn't know that Atlanta guys have their own attitude that is different from African Americans from other parts of the country. So this guy was like, I don't dress like the way other people dress. I wear suit and tie and come to the office. And I was like, why do you always wear suit and tie? I was like, why do you always wear jeans? And it was like, I'm trying to act as if I am a white guy. And I was like, this is how I've been dressing all my life. And my position is different from yours. I am like a public figure in the job. I have to go and do presentations all the time. And I believe that the first time somebody sees you, your reputation takes from that moment. But you are always in the office and you don't go out. So we are having two different jobs. So you don't use your position to judge my position. And it's always feeling like I don't deserve to have the job because I am black or because I am African or something. And I sat with him one day and I was having a conversation with him. And he got to understand that we have differences that we are judging based on our implicit biases. and it's prejudice we have towards each other. So for us to break through that prejudice, we have to have a heart-to-heart discussion and get to understand that, oh, this is the difference I have. This is not true. But it's based on my bias I have
Or
towards
some
you.
ignorance
Right.
that you may have.
I don't want to call it an ignorance because they don't know, but some of them they know, but it's just bias. They know that these people, ignorance is I don't know anything about Africans. That's ignorance. But
get
I
what you're
know
saying.
about
Okay.
Africans, but I'm just biased towards Africans because I feel like, oh, they can lick shit from a white man because they migrated here and they will do anything to survive. And I can't do that. But it doesn't mean that you'll be biased towards me because you can't do that. But I can do it and you can't do it. Doesn't stop you from doing other things. So it's bias and not ignorance.
Right. Yeah, let's talk about that implicit bias for a moment, because I feel like in my family that's been a thing for a while. Because my background, my family is from the Caribbean, and I think we as Caribbean people, well, not we, but I guess the older generation of Caribbean people have a implicit bias towards African Americans, like they're lazy. Very similar to what you were talking about, like, oh, they're lazy, they don't like have any work ethic or stuff like that, and that was kind of a narrative that I
They
grew
even
up
do
with.
that shit with their own people.
Well, I mean, yes. So,
My parents is Haitian, and I've heard plenty of conversations of how they feel about Jamaicans and Trinidadians and whoever, African Americans, whatever, Hispanic people. And it's like y'all all come from the same thing. It's just different seasoning. So I don't I don't understand why you may feel a certain way towards a specific group.
Right.
You just don't understand that aspect of their culture, so it looks completely different to you. I'm sure if you was to have a conversation with those people, then you would note the similarities within it. And you're like, oh, you're not so different. You're just doing the same thing we would do, but just with a twist.
So
Right.
I sat in a table one day because my friends, I have some African American friends that were born in the South, that we sat in a table and they were saying that our community, like Bill Cosby failed our community. And I was like, what community are you talking of? He said the African American community. And I said, what about me? Am I not a black person? Did Bill Cosby not fail me as a black person? Why are you trying to exclude me from the community? You are gay, I am gay. So we are gay community members. So before black, we're also minority in another side. So in the black is that you might feel that you are forced to be here or something, but I'm also forced to be here because I'm an immigrant. So before we go into our various stratus of being different, why don't you look at our similarity? Where do we come together and recognize that we are together? Because the reason why the movement have failed now compared to before is that a joint movement is always powerful. Like if you are fighting as black people, the hardest hit people are poor people before black people. So I'm an African and I'm poor, and you're an African American and you're poor, or I'm an African and I'm gay, and you're an African American and you are gay. We are the same community of black people. So if you are fighting for Black Lives Matter and you add immigrants together and you add LGBTQ people together, we will all come as a unified movement. Before we remember blackness, we remember struggle. Even in this table that we are eating now, you have made me feel like as if I'm not welcome. But the struggle is together. If we don't come together and fight, it's like we're dragging for who should get money. I work in a non-profit sector. We're dragging for who should get money first. You're on climate change. I'm on gender equality. That's the hardest hit people are people who are poor. That is, if climate change happens here, it's poor people that you affect first. You are fighting poverty. You are fighting climate change. You are fighting gender parity. Why don't you come together and fight a unified movement? Because when you start excluding people, it weakens the effort of how the movement could have been. So on that day, we were arguing back and front. At the end, we argued very seriously and we're on top of our voices. We stopped eating and we stopped. When we went out, I went to meet him. I wanted to hug him. He said, no, don't hug me. I was like, why are you fighting like as if you are not matured? We have argued on the table and we have gone over it. tomorrow we're going to meet each other, or you think if we meet tomorrow, you're going to not talk to me. We're still friends. We're still people. We should learn how to argue and
Constructively.
understand and move over it and get on. If we separate ourselves and we're fighting the enemy, we have weakened the movement.
Yeah, I think that's a big point that you made. Is that a lot of times it's okay to have disagreements and differences, but not let it be something like, oh, because you think different, now you're a different person, or I don't respect you anymore.
Well,
It's like it's fine for you to have opposing views, but at the same time, we're still fighting together towards the same goal.
True.
And I think a lot of people lose that focus.
Right.
Because even when you see, like, he referenced the Black Lives Matter thing, then you'll see, like, the Hispanic group, like, oh, what about Latinos matter? And this group would say this, or this group would say that. It's like, we're all fighting for the same thing. So I think the emphasis is too much on that specific label itself.
Right.
True.
Right.
And
Everyone
that
picks a
label itself is like, oh, if they're only talking about this, so that just cancels out everybody else. And it's like, no, that's not the case. If we succeed on this level, everybody wins. And I think people forget that point.
Yeah, that's true. Everyone wants to pick a struggle because it's like no one wants to feel excluded. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to that, it's like, we're not seeing the commonalities. We're only seeing things from our perspective, the struggles that a particular group is going through. And when it comes down to it, it's, people's concerns don't want to be ignored. You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, sometimes in these types of causes, certain things go to the wayside, or certain, certain things about the struggle are ignored. You know what I'm saying? And people want to make sure, like, all right, if we're fighting for womanism, or we're fighting for feminism, we're fighting for all these causes, that their voices are not going to be, like, ignored or not heard. So that's where I think the disparity comes. But when it comes down to it, if we get to learn about those similarities based on what we're saying, then you realize, oh, okay, well, all of our voices combined, you know what I'm saying, we'll be able to get all of our voices heard and the message across more than us individually, like, in different groups trying to fight for the same thing.
When I was growing up in Nigeria, I remember that doctors were coming to Nigeria, like PhD graduates, to teach professors in Nigeria. And I was saying, like, why are there no black professors coming to Nigeria? I didn't know that, like, slavery was a thing. I wasn't aware about it. When I came here and I discovered that people were not able to go to school then. So how can they become professors when they were not given opportunity to study? So that was something that I became aware of, that even a lot of people in Africa are still ignorant about, that they didn't know that people were not opportune to go to school and become, like, doctors who can come and do international work or something like that. Like, the struggle to be heard has made us want to outshine other people. We want to be heard. The need to be heard. But Rosa Parks, who stayed in that bus, she was not the person that planned all the movement. The leadership is not being the point person all the time. Sometimes being able to take the back seat and give other people the opportunity to stand in the gap and you take the back seat sometimes matters more than you being on the front line. And this is what is happening now, is that everybody wants to be the voice.
Yeah. Everybody thinks their issue is more important than everybody else's.
Yeah.
That's true.
So what were, like, some thoughts that you may have had about America, and then once you got here it was like, oh, this is, like, completely false? Like, I know a big one that my parents talk about is, like, how back home in Haiti everybody assumes, well, if you're living in America you must have money.
You're rich.
And that's definitely not the case.
It's like a force, but it's part of selling the American dream to people outside. Like, you think that the streets are made of gold. You think that, so although it's good compared to where I came from, but
it's still not
it's
as
not
great.
It's not what was sold to most people. Like, I know they have constant electricity here, internet is good, healthcare here is better than what it is. But I never knew that people stay on the streets. Because, like they said, that if you sleep in the night, if the road is bad, if you wake up in the morning, all the roads are fine. As a kid, when they talk about America, is that place that everybody should step their foot in. If you don't put your foot in America, you don't have money. To show your class, you have to travel there or just take pictures in New York City. And like I remember when I'm growing up, my mom used to say that, Edafe, do you know Mama John's son? John is now in America. Oh, that's why his mother is driving this car, because he's sending dollars. Like, all these things is like,
Yeah,
everybody's dream.
Same thing that happens in the Caribbean.
Everybody's dream is to come to America. Although I feel like I'm living my dream staying in this country, I wouldn't lie, because when I was growing up, I just wanted to be in a place that, because I was suffering a lot of persecution, I just wanted to be in a place that I can be free to be gay, even though I didn't know that I was going to be judged by my skin color, but I just wanted freedom from being gay.
So it's like you kind of escaped one thing, and then now you've inherited. Now you inherited another.
When I was coming into the country from Europe, from Amsterdam in September, like then I knew that I'm a black person.
Mm-hmm.
So like the border patrol officers, white people just come, welcome back. Like everybody was going. When it got to me, they're like, oh, you're an immigrant? Yes, okay. They stamped my passport and said, okay, go to this room. I was detained for like 3 hours.
Jeez.
Just because
Just because they called it, yeah.
And my call. So like another thing is that if ICE, like Immigration Custom Enforcement, is looking for an immigrant, they detect you by your skin color.
Yep.
So I got to know from meeting people, interviewing people, and being an immigration activist that immigration laws in America are racist.
Oh.
For example,
yeah.
Highly.
in 1881, the first immigration law that was ever created was to deter Chinese workers. They were afraid that they were going to take over the labor market. In 1981, Reagan administration passed a law to detain Asian and Cuban migrants because they were most people that were migrating here. In 1982, detention was extended to detain all people of color that were coming into America, to deter them from coming into the country. And if you see during the Reagan administration, internal memos that were signed was white socialism to like prevent a lot of people of color coming into the country so that they will protect whiteness. So people are thinking that Trump is against immigrants coming to this country. Is a trend. In Clinton administration, children were detained in Guantanamo Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Like this has been even
It's part of the culture.
even Obama wanted to prove to like white people that this immigration, like a lot of people think that Obama was good. I was detained during Obama administration. It's called the deportation machine.
Right.
More people were deported during Obama administration than any other administration. But now in the Trump administration, detention is being increased from 34,000 to 54,000 by Congress mandates. And one person is $150 a day to detain you, times 34,000 people, times 365 days. It will transform the healthcare system of America.
Yeah,
If you
I'm
put
not
it
good
into
with that,
healthcare,
but that's a lot of money.
That's insane.
this is like Congress mandate so that people of color, if you go to detention centers, it's all people of color,
Mm-hmm.
is to make us sign a deportation and return back to
your
our
country.
countries. They say that by 2050, 50% of Americans will be people of color. They are afraid because they're afraid to lose the whiteness that exists in this country. So when I got to understand the racism that plays as an institutional thing and not just on a, like people think that racism is a civil rights movement. Racism is an ongoing thing in America to like place people in an institutionalized way. If they see a black man prospering in a sort, like why are they against immigrants? Because they feel like people are hardworking, they are growing, they are succeeding, and it's a capitalist society that when you start succeeding, it never ends. They're afraid to see people growing in the system
And then
to
pass
like
it down
contest
to generation to
so
generation.
because they are able to be successful because of the generational wealth they have accumulated. They're seeing that these people are growing now, and it will become in 2050 their children. Damon John that has Fubu. Imagine Damon John's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She will be a successful person too because the father will pass on the wealth to her, and it will become LeBron James. Or they are afraid of the
Yeah.
success that is about to come, and they want to protect their own stuff. That is why you see them being racist. But the truth is that from 2000 to 2010, 70% of job loss was due to automation, and it's ignorance to think that it's immigrants.
Right.
Automation is the number one job for men in America was construction job and working in the factories. And now robots are taking those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Automation is taking those jobs. For women, number one job was typing and receptionist. And now computer has taken away typists. Visual assistant has taken away receptionist job. Who is taking away the job? It's Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg. It's not me that is coming here just to be able to seek safety. So ignorance plays a role for a lot of people who think that immigrants are coming here to take away the jobs of people. I experienced racism from a black person in Newark when I just came to America. He thought I was an Asian from Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to get into the train in Newark Penn Station, and he said, "Go back to Haiti." I was like, "No, I'm from Africa." I was like, "I don't care. You people came here and killed my brother." And I was like, "Are you not a black
What?
person too?" So like ignorance exists that people do not know why people flee and come to this country.
Mm-hmm.
And people think that we're coming here to come and take away what they are doing. If I came here and if I don't have a job, I will sleep on the streets. I will clean a shoe for somebody. But because you are born here, you can't do it. You know why? Your family is seeing you. Ego, pride. In Nigeria, I can't clean shoes for people because my family will say, "Daffy, what is wrong with you? Are you trying to destroy our family name?" But me as an African that is in America that is doing that, I'm doing that because I don't want to sleep on the street. I don't have any social protection. I don't have any backing. If I don't do it, I won't survive. So it's ignorance not to know why people do something and judge them about it.
That was deep.
But before we continue, like, I want to flip the question, that last question, to us, because just in the sense of like what are our perceptions of Africa? I mean, obviously, none of us here have been to Africa, but just our preconceived notions of Africa in the sense of, hearing it on the news or like probably when we were younger. You know what I'm saying? Because I know when I was growing up, like, you see all these commercials of like, these poor-looking African children that are flea-ridden and they have no shoes, and comes
for 99 cents a day you can help them,
right.
and this that, and
there's
third.
Sarah McLachlan walking on the screen like, all right, well,
it's always,
for a cup of
I forgot
coffee,
who's,
you can
I
save
think
this
I was
African child.
listening.
Like,
This is probably like an old episode of the Thick podcast, and I feel like it was Mindy that was going on a rant. It was like, oh, it's always the white woman that has to go to Africa to save the little kid. And
Ellen
bullshit.
DeGeneres did it.
You always need a white savior.
Yeah.
In every movie you watch, no matter how positive it could be about black and white people coming together, it's always the white man saving the black man for something. That's always the narrative at the end of the story.
True.
Yeah.
Whether we pay attention or not, it's always the white man saving the poor black people or coming in and having a change of heart. And I'm not racist no more. I'm here to help you. It's like, bruh.
Some of them do it for ego.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that with my work in New York City. There are a lot of white people, because I was asking, when I go for a fundraising or something, I don't see a lot of black people, maybe 2% out of the 100% that comes for the fundraiser. And there's a lot of white people. I was asking, like, what is the true intention of some people? And I discovered that some people do it just for pride, like, I'm helping the poor African immigrants that are migrating to our country. So some people do it for ego, but Ellen DeGeneres did it in one of her posts recently when she went to East Africa. She was all with the poor African kids that they are close.
Yeah, they've been low key trying to get Ellen out of here for quite some time.
Well, once again, that's the narrative. It's like that's all we see when it comes to Africa. And I know Africa is much more has a lot of civilization and they're advanced and all that stuff. But you always see that narrative of, oh, I'm a celebrity, I'm going to Africa to save the children, and they choose that one little school that might not have everything with it, and the kids that are kind of not doing well, and then they merge themselves with the tribe, and the kids are just happy to be on camera. You know what I'm saying? It probably has nothing to do with, oh, this white woman I do not know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna go hug up on her for whatever reason, but
and then they never return ever
right,
again.
ever again.
Let me even paint an example for you that is very clear. Black people, immigrants, all of us, we have not been represented rightly. The sole reason is that we didn't have access to be able to get out the information to people, because people that have power, the power dynamics was like they have the power to be in the faces of people. People that had power to be in the faces of people, they write their scripts for them. Like Oprah Winfrey had a show. How many black successful people were interviewed on a show to tell people that black people are successful in their communities? But they needed a lot of followers, people that have huge followers, people that would sell TV for them. They interview only the successful black people that are already well known.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you give a camera to children in a refugee camp in Ethiopia to snap pictures, they wouldn't snap pictures of a child that is dying or have ribs to show. They will snap pictures of themselves playing soccer, playing under the rain. They are human beings. They have lives. But because people want to sell advertisements, they want to show something that will capture the news. Right. So representation is beyond what we see on our feeds, on Instagram, on Facebook,
Gotta change
on
the
Twitter.
narrative.
People, traditional media companies are afraid of the, like, podcasters, bloggers, the citizen journalism, because the attention has shifted from like traditional TV to like other forms of media. And these other forms of media are deconstructing what it takes to be represented. And this fear is threatening people. I know that Instagram is people say it's fake, but there's some form of truth.
Yeah, there's balance in everything.
Yeah, so let me say 25% is fake, but 75%, if you go scroll down or use hashtags, you will see like in-depth pictures of things that are happening all around the world. There's a white guy that runs a company on the West Coast. It's called Miracle Water. There is no non-profit in the world that raise money more than Miracle Water. Mineral water. Why is that? Him have access to people like the guy that founded the first investor on Instagram. What's his name? The guy that used the cowboy shirts all the time.
Drawing blanks there.
Cowboy man?
He's an investor in Uber, Instagram, and Twitter. If I remember his name, I will let you know. So, he met him in a TED Talk and showed him a reel. He's a white guy, met another white guy, and that guy put him on Google AdWords, on the front page of Google AdWords. And his advertisement picked up from there that they are providing water, clean water for people in Africa, Asia that are suffering, and they raised billions of dollars in just 7 years. Other non-profits in Africa that are doing the same thing, they don't have money. But the best way to empower people is people who are affected, give them power to solve their problem. It's not one rich white guy in the middle of the country coming to, like, if people need shoes in Africa, and you buy shoes in America and dump it in Africa, the shoemaker who produces shoe in Africa is going out of business. You are not doing us any good. You are not empowering us. You are doing us bad. Did you ask us what our problem are? Don't we have mouths? Can't we speak for ourselves? Women's rights. Imagine a man speaking on behalf of women's rights. What does he know about reproductive rights? Have you ever given birth to a child before? You have never stayed in Africa.
That's why the women are so upset about. That's why the women are so upset about all the recent elections, because it's white women that keep voting for white men to make decisions on women's rights.
And then they cry later on. That's why I always say I'm not a feminist. I'm not a part of the women's rights movement.
His name is Chris.
Yeah, I just Googled.
Angel investor.
Yeah.
So like, they don't know our struggles. When my dad, when I remember I and my mother, when my sister had a child out of wedlock, she was 16 years old. I remember my dad chased my sister out of the house. My mom separated with my dad because of that incident. I and my mom we were sleeping in just one room. Like, we know our struggles. If you want to provide for us because you think we are poor and you have never gone through our struggles, and you are taking our narratives, you capture some parts and you produce a clip that could say among some rich white men and make them feel good that they are doing good, you have told our story wrong.
That's deep. So what are your thoughts on the actual term African American?
I have my own opinion on that. You go first.
No, you go first.
I prefer to call myself Black American. I'm not directly from Africa. I'm pretty sure I have ancestors down the line, of course, but I don't call myself African American. I don't think that is a proper term that I should use. So I'll go with Black American. I don't, but it's nothing on like census or anything that lets you choose African American or Black American. I feel like they lump us all into one just because of the color of our skin.
Yeah.
It's just one big lump. They don't have Caribbean American necessarily. It's just
True.
you're Black. So you have somewhere down the line you're from Africa, so you're just African American.
So before I came here, I didn't know of the word African American.
Yeah.
I've never
Most
heard
people
about the word African American all my life. 26 years before I came here. I have a master's, but I don't know the word African American. All we know is that Denzel Washington is a Black American. Jay-Z is a Black American. Beyonce is a Black American. When I came here, I heard the word African American. I was like, oh, so these people are also Africans? I thought it's like we that migrated here, that we now became Americans and they call us Africans Americans. Until one day, there's a word they use that is very derogatory. They say Akata. Have you heard about it? Google the word Akata. It means that it's a Black person that came to America and lost his way back home and couldn't find his way back home. So they say Black American or Akata. So when I came here and I heard African American, I thought that it was like African people that migrated here and became Americans. So African American, if they call themselves African Americans, why do they see themselves different from Africans?
Because it's the way that we were told. Like when you're walking down the street, you have someone who's first generation Chinese. So they're Chinese American because they're Chinese, but they grew up here in America. Now, when it comes to the whole Black American and Africans, when it comes to that whole beef situation, it's a lot of times, like you said before, it's bias and we're looked down upon. So automatically, it's just like, well, maybe we should just kind of separate ourselves. That way we can learn more about each other in different ways. Like, I don't know about everybody else in here, but I grew up in schools where I had friends who were from Africa. I had friends who were from India. So I grew up around different cultures. I had Chinese friends at the age of 6 years old. So to me, kind of like we were just kids, but I recognized your differences. I know I'm not African, so I can't say I'm African American, but I know I'm Black. My family's from the South. And I know we do have, African blood in us. So I'm Black American, and out of respect, you're African American. But at the same time, a lot of Africans here in America do look down on us because, like you said, we're lost. And if we're lost, why aren't you teaching us? Because I like to learn things, and I can't have certain conversations with people because of their own bias and or ignorance when it comes to me because I'm quote-unquote lost. But if I'm asking you to help me understand, why can't you do that? Why do you just brush me off? Like, oh, you're like the black sheep, or, you just whatever. That's what I don't particularly like when I experience certain Africans. Not all.
So, racism and like the belief that somebody is bigger than another person is a human thing and not just white versus Black.
Yeah.
Racism is supposed to be by skin color, not Black discriminating Black. That is not racism, that is ignorance. Because in Nigeria, we are all Blacks, we separate ourselves by religion or ethnicity, Christians or Muslims. If among whites, they separate themselves up by social class, rich and poor. It is a human thing to want to feel like you are greater than another person. So, African Americans, Black people who were born in America want to discriminate Black people who are from Africa to make themselves feel that they are bigger than another person. But that is not racism. That is ignorance. How can you discriminate a black person? Race is between black and white. How can a black person be a racist to a black person?
Right, yeah.
It's just a thing to make you feel like, oh, I am better than them. They came from Africa. But if you come to Africa, I am better than you because I was born in Africa. Everybody comes from somewhere. A river did not start flowing out of nothing. A river flows from something. I am very proud of myself because if you call yourself an African American, that means you are saying you are African first before American. So why would you discriminate me when you are first under me before you are under somebody? So your true identity is under two people. If you come to Africa, you're under me. If you stay in America, you're under another person. But in the true sense is that people who do that do not have an understanding of what it takes to be discriminated. If you have been discriminated by another person and you know how painful it is, why try to bring it down to another person? Because I've been discriminated all my life, I have created my own narrative. I've been discriminated for being gay, now being black, now being refugee, because of my accent. Because I have a different hairstyle. African Americans are different from Africans. My hair is like coily because I didn't use hair cream like Soulmate or something. I didn't have money to buy such kind of expensive tush creams.
Don't buy perm, y'all. My hair is a perm. Don't buy perm, y'all.
so like I am different in so many ways. But the only reason why I've been able to survive and remain strong is because I know my self-worth is internal and not external. And as I study, I travel. I've only not been to two parts of the world. That's Australia and South America. And I'm conquering those two next year. I'm going to Australia in March and South America in my birthday in July. So one thing I have seen when I travel around the world is that people always find something to make themselves better than others. It's a human thing. And that is why the white people want to always make themselves look like they are better than the black people. Among themselves, they discriminate themselves.
Yeah, social
White,
class.
Jewish,
Definitely.
these
Age,
people. I work in
sex.
Wall Street or something. Even among Wall Street, I work in DNB Bank. You work in this. Oh, my bank is better than your bank. Oh, my podcast rating
Bank
is
squad.
too. So people want to find something that will make
We're
them
always
feel they're better
nitpicking
than
to find
others.
ways to separate each other from one another.
Yeah.
But you know,
Makes no sense.
But you know what I just thought of in the concept of just like the term African American and all that stuff? Like, if you flip it, you don't see Americans going to Africa and now they're American Africans. You know what I'm saying? There's no such thing as African Africans. Like,
No,
you know what I'm
you will
saying?
still be Black American in Africa.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And that's the thing because with these, like, America is completely different in regards that America doesn't have an ingrained fundamental culture. You know what I mean? So everyone outside of America coming here is going to get coined either African American, Chinese American, or whatever the case may be, because there's no solid, like, America wasn't founded on any type of culture or heritage, you know what I'm saying, that is original to this country, unless it's Native American. Keep in mind, Native is not a country, so being a Native American means that you're originally from this land. You know what I mean? Everyone else that comes from outside of it is
Has some sort of roots from
right,
somewhere
has some
else.
roots from somewhere else. So
True.
when it comes to Black Americans being born here, you know what I'm saying, in this country and being from the South and all that stuff, that's obviously derived from the
Slavery.
ancestors and stuff from slavery. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying, the term African American should, in right, only come from people that come from Africa that come to the United States, become citizens, and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that's where a lot of people get caught up in, and it's important to know that type of information. It's important to know that type of grounding. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what causes that type of that disparity.
And
You
I
know what
think
I'm saying?
people take it in a negative way. Whereas I don't. Like, I know who I am.
Yeah.
But the type of person I am and how I grew up, I like to learn from different people. And I don't feel like I'm always afforded that option to learn from people a lot of times based on their ignorance and how they see me. Even with Caribbean people, they say certain things. I'll be like, that's fine. Well, I'm Black American. I don't have no problem with that. And
Yeah.
Right.
I stand proudly in who I am.
I don't know if
am,
your
what
parents did it, but I
for.
definitely have overheard my parents say some shit to me about, well, because you was born here, that's why you act like that. If you was born over here, you would be a completely different
100%.
person. It's like,
Absolutely.
you're still the adult. Like, you're still supposed to teach me the things that are supposed to be right or wrong, unquote. So it shouldn't matter wherever I was born from.
So like, I saw like African American kids, like black kids, playing in a train, and I was like, where are their parents? I was just thinking.
Good question.
But
Showtime.
Good question. Where are they?
in Africa, you know, our parents are very conservative. When we are growing, we are very myopic in the way we think, and that is a disadvantage to my upbringing. That when I came here, it was difficult for me to understand that a child should play and should be allowed to play, because when I play in a certain way, my mother was like, Edafe, if you continue that play, and if an African woman is talking like that, know that
Some shit is about to happen.
Word and run. So like,
I think every black woman has that voice in it.
how can I just associate with people and play freely? My sisters, if they talk about man or something, my mother will say, Neta, so you're talking about a man. You are just 12 years.
Breaking the heart.
Like, my sister, she got pregnant when she was very young because she never knew anything about, like, period,
She wasn't
menstrual
taught that.
cycle.
She wasn't educated.
Because if you say something like that, it's forbidden.
So I think nowadays children
They're
are
being raised by children.
Yeah, because their children they're having kids very young, and then the grandmother's still young, and everyone's trying to be everyone's friend and grow up together. So whereas in my household, my family came
There's a
straight
level
from
of
Georgia
authority.
to New York, straight from Mississippi to New York. So I
Yeah.
still have those southern roots around me. When it's just like, you're a lady, you do this, you do that. You don't speak out of turn. You say yes, you say no, you say miss, you say ma'am, you say sir. And where I work at, when I call people miss whatever their name is, they're offended. Like, don't call me. Like, you're making me seem old. I'm like,
out of
well,
respect.
I was told that's what I'm supposed to do because we're not family.
Yeah.
I can't call you cousin Brenda. You're Miss Brenda. And I feel like kids don't have that kind of structure in their household because no one really wants to grow up. Everyone is teenagers. Then I feel like they don't have proper education when it comes to sex, when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to, how to clean yourself properly, what a period is, and what sperm is, and how to actually work. Like, no one is really being educated. Kids are just left to just go out on their own because, unfortunately, parents are working really, really hard just to provide. So the kids don't have anywhere to go to let out, some of that energy that they have. We don't really have after-school programs. I was in after-school. I danced. My sister ran track. We played softball. We played, instruments. Like, kids don't have that these days, and it's very unfortunate. And I think that's where a lot of the misconceptions come from when you have the older and younger, and then cultural. In certain cultures, things are done this way compared to other
I couldn't
ways.
agree less with you because, like, older generation of black folks in America, I've interacted with them. They are more, like, accepting than younger generation, like teenagers and young people. I feel like the ignorance is at a saturated level now that people don't want to learn.
Older people, I feel, are a lot more understanding depending on how they were raised. And then you have the younger kids, anybody under 19 or 18 who's just completely fucking ignorant.
Yeah.
And then you have that cap between 18, 19 to like 26, 27 when they actually know what the fuck they're talking about. So depending on what age group you bump into, you're going to get a different vibe. You're going to get a different perspective. You're going to get a different conversation with them.
'Cause we take life for granted. Like, a lot of shit happens in such a short amount of time. Like, I always say, like, people have a completely different life in like a 5-year window.
Do you know that the younger people now, there's something that is very funny, is that a lot of young people, they want to make impacts. You're 16 years old, you're crying that I haven't been able to make impacts in the world. It took Oprah more than 40 years of her life to be
Yeah,
Oprah.
I be telling my homegirl that too.
Flashback.
She's like 21, 22, and she feels like she needs to be like she needs to start accelerating in her
Right.
life. I'm
She-
like,
she needs
yo,
to make it
I have a
now.
slow
coworker
the
like
fuck
that. She's like,
down.
I feel like I'm not living my life.
But
like
you
I
know-
I didn't
used to.
figure
I'm
out
like,
How
what-
many years have you?
21.
How many years
I
have you
didn't
worked there?
But
I
you-
haven't
that you
figured
want to
out
change
life
the
for
world.
myself until I
Okay,
was
every day I
28.
wake
But
up with a
you
new
see,
plan.
At the same time, it's like
Even at 40, sometimes you think you figure life.
Yeah.
When you look at your 28, you're like,
Everything
oh
just
my
shake
God.
up, and you're like,
I thought
fuck
I knew what
again.
I was doing then. I didn't know what I was
Yeah,
doing.
I'm always telling her like, yo, you gotta slow down, and because of technology, you have access to all this
Right.
information. You see people in other age groups
Kim
that do.
Kardashian.
Yeah, you
Right.
see people in other
Courtney.
age groups, and you think like, oh, if they're able to live like that, I should be able to live like that too. It's like, no, you first of all, you don't even know how they got to that point.
Right. But
It's-
and
the wild part about, not to cut you off, but the wild part about it is like, they're like, I don't think we understand the pressures that they get at a younger age, and for us it's just like, well, why are you stressed? Why are you all that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But for example, like my cousin, she has a radio show at her college or whatever, but you know, and she's trying to like get into media and all these things, and for her, like, she feels the pressure of being successful, not necessarily because she's young, but being successful because like there's so much resources out there that she has.
So the
access
metrics
to.
is deceptive. So I was asking somebody, do you prefer likes on your Instagram post or the message the post gives?
Likes. Next.
So the metrics is deceptive because the truth to be told is that a lot of young people now are very impatient, but it takes time to build anything meaningful.
Yep.
If my favorite podcast is Guy Ross on NPR.
Mhm.
I remember I was struggling to have the opportunity to be on NPR. The time that they called me to come and do a podcast on NPR, I was like, I couldn't believe that something I've been struggling all my life, they just gave it to me on a giveaway. But at the time I wanted it, I was impatient. I wanted it. I didn't know that NPR wanted me to build a profile before they would call me for that interview. Who are you?
You
What
gotta
do
pay
you
your
have to
dues.
offer?
You gotta pay your dues.
People want to be visible, but you cannot be visible. See, credibility does not come without hard work. You have to pay the dues. You have to be credible. You have to be trustworthy
Gotta do the
before
work.
somebody will say, okay, I will put my
Here's your
energy
opportunity.
into
And
your effort.
invest
So
in them, yeah.
you just started working today, and you're saying that you want to be the executive director of an organization. What experience do you have? You have not had conflict with people, HRO, management. There's so many complexity in being to that position. It takes time to build, because today, I don't feel like social media is the factor. I feel like the education system has failed people.
It's
When I
been
was-
failing people.
Failed the city.
When I was growing up, when I was going to school, education system taught me to, like, if you have a master's or PhD, you will be successful. But I have a master's in nutrition. I do media. I'm the executive director of a non-profit. I write grants. I supervise HRO, accounting, trademarking. I've never done anything in nutrition.
Fuck it.
What has nutrition got to do with what I'm doing now? I learned by experience. So the education system is failing there, in the sense that the education system, we do 4 6 4, that's 4 years, 6 years, 6 years, 4 years. But all those time we are spending there, the education system should be like, oh, are you entrepreneurial? Okay.
I
In
agree.
entrepreneurship,
I've been
people
saying
can
this
learn this
forever.
to be this, but when you become an entrepreneur, success doesn't happen overnight. You have to build reputation. You have, like, some people have entrepreneurship on their profiles on Instagram, but they have never sold any product online. Even $2,
Fake news.
even $2 of product you have never sold, and you call yourself an entrepreneur. You waste money in building a
The
profile.
public figures that you never see in public.
hierarchy you build to sustain that hierarchy is more than building that hierarchy. For example, our government build a lot, invest money in military so that they can save their position as
The most
chief
powerful-
general.
yeah.
So it's the same thing. When you start creating a profile, to sustain that profile takes a lot of hard work. Me, I have a 9-to-5 job. I do podcasts. I'm an author of a book. I travel to speak public gigs. I blog. I don't sleep.
Talk heavy.
I work like continuously. When I go on vacation, I just shut down everything. But I work and work and work. to sustain that lifestyle, I am building today for tomorrow. So, upon all I am doing, sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm not stressing myself, and I don't want recognition now. I cannot push to be on Oprah Winfrey show now, knowing fully well that this is not my best product. When people see me, and I didn't give them my my best product the first time, I have lost those people. Some entrepreneurs, they are sending shirt to people. Oh, wear my shirt, snap and be on Instagram. You want visibility that you cannot sustain. Right. You are promoting yourself when you are not supposed to. You are pushing the process too fast, and you will lose shit. Some people are producing things. They say people are not listening. People are not listening. You are archiving. 20 years from now, a lot of people will listen to this show, and they will know that we're trying to like educate people, and it will be part of their history project. Maybe they are studying history about Africans, African American, Caribbean, Asians, and they will stumble upon this, and it will be a part of what will lead to them writing their project, and they will do what? List us as part of their project, and we have died, but we will never be forgotten because we have created legacy. So people do not know that some things that they are doing today, they might not repeat during their lifetime, or maybe when they are dead, that's when their name will come up on Wikipedia.
That's like the Tupac quote. I may not change the world, but I may spark the mind that does.
Can you imagine this being some kids' cited sources in their paper? Oh, baby.
All the ignorant shit we said.
So this quote from Nieema Simone back in 2008.
Listen, not kids don't
It
use
begun
that.
with a year. We're over on time, but I'll really quick. I want to ask this one last question because I think, well, I feel like it's important. Yeah. How do you feel about do you feel as though like the African culture kind of gets what's the word I'm looking for?
Appropriated?
Yeah, appropriated. Like Black Panther came out in February, and you had like a 50-50 split of people who's like really supporting it. You know, we have a prominent, black figure as a superhero. It could inspire young people. And then you had the other half of people who's like, oh, why are you wearing African garb when you don't even really know what tribe you're from and things of that nature. So how do you feel about...
And that would be great.
A conversation has to start somehow. If that's how the conversation wants to start, at least it led to people talking about it. Right. Something was done. It is easier to judge than to do. A lot of people that judge, they can't do. Imperfection leads to failure. But imperfection also leads to success. Imperfection can paralyze you or energize you. I am not a good writer, but I wrote a book. People told me that at 26 years, why do you want to write a memoir? What do you have to say? Memoir is for 50 years and above. It's imperfection. Right. It's my imperfection I let go that made me... I've spoken about my book in Europe, Canada, West Coast, different places. I've traveled because of it. I built a brand on top of it. So Black Panther is just an animation, Marvel Studio something. At least it led to people talking. Is appropriation, misappropriation? What have you done to build on appropriation? Who have you educated about how Africans dress or not? Why don't you create a podcast and talk about appropriation of African dressing? People will listen to you. It is easier to judge, but people who judge are losers. If you think that something should be done right, step forward and do it. And if you think that nobody is listening, one person is educated, you are changing one head at a time, the movement is growing. I don't care if people don't listen to my podcast or not. I care about one person. And if that one person is myself, that is able to change because I know that I am doing what I want to do, it's okay for me. When I was writing my memoir, I was just looking at one person. There's a young boy in Nigeria who almost committed suicide because he's gay. And he told me that the reason why I wanted to commit suicide is because he has never seen any literature that shows that gay people exist from Nigeria. Just because of that one guy, I wrote that literature. And just because of that one guy, thousands of other Nigerian young gay guys, when I've died, will read my book. I know that gay people should exist because we are human beings. In history, it is documented that I wrote about Elizabeth Detention Center, that I lost my name to a bed number. And it's documented. I don't care what people think, if I'm a good writer or if I'm a wrong writer. but I believe that everybody has
A
an
story to tell.
anthem of something to change the world. And if you are judging, you are not acting, then you are a fucking loser. Because people who act, they are moving the movement forward. Why are you judging? You're just wasting your time judging. Judging doesn't save. Sometimes it's good when we judge appropriately. It brings a conversation. Marvel Studio made you discuss about appropriation, right? If they didn't make it, who would have discussed about appropriation? Nobody.
That's true.
So kudos to them.
I think we just ended on that.
All right. I feel very motivated. Like, I don't know about y'all, but
It's been a while since we had like a really, really deep.
I feel like we learned.
Conversation.
Like, I legit learned shit today. Like,
Yeah.
I would tell you guys that I'm grateful that I'm able to discuss with you guys, because I have been in this struggle to understand, like, why don't we come together to like build forces together. So I'm really excited we're able to do this.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you came on the show.
Thanks to Vixon.
Yeah, no, I appreciate. I mean, you know, we met through Instagram and stuff like that. So like we had I did a profile for him for my series, and you know, like we just really connected. So I figured like his perspective here would be really dope. So I appreciate you coming on.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
thank
This is really
you.
dope.
Thank you. Give the people your socials, anything that you want to promote.
So you can check on my website www.edafeokporo.com. So I train people on how to be a voice on their community. I offer mentorship to like young people who want to create a brand. BYOB, be your own boss. So I also train people on podcasting and a lot of fun little stuff on how to start your business from point zero to where you want it to be. It takes time to grow a business, but today, passive income is the two coolest adjective in business. Passive income is like writing a book, leaving it online. You don't have to promote it. Years to come, you'll be selling. When you sleep, you make money. Create a podcast and leave it online. People download, and you have CPM, and you sleep and you make money. So I believe that everybody could be somebody if they know how to become somebody. So I train people. So you could go to my website and sign up.
Yeah, we'll make sure to put all that information in the description. I'm speechless. I ain't got nothing else to say.
I had fun. I enjoyed this.
Well,
Because I like to learn. It's very,
Yeah.
you know, I don't get this opportunity to sit down and talk to people I actually learn something from. So I appreciate you.
And you go to school.
Okay.
Well,
I've been to school a few times.
We know we all had that conversation about school already. So yeah, we want again thank you for coming on to the show. Thank everybody for listening. Thank Bianca for helping craft this episode.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, just thank you to everybody. And
this conversation is just so dope. So yeah, just keep listening, man. I mean,
he's so flustered.
It's such a
I mean, I didn't say anything for the first 30 minutes because I was just soaking up everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it happened.
This was a dope conversation. That's all I got.
Yeah, you gotta do more.
I'm done.
All right, well, bye.
Later, y'all.
Bye,
All for the caution.
We are out here. Fuck y'all talking about? Sophisticated ignorance. Are y'all fucking crazy?
That's a fact. Talk
Are y'all
that shit.
Yo, y'all getting me tight. Like, I be out here trying to be humble. Let's not get fucking crazy. Sophisticated ignorance. Alright?